The world is watching as a long-simmering shadow war between Israel and Iran has erupted into open conflict. This is a significant escalation, moving from covert operations to direct military confrontation. The recent events began when Israel, citing an imminent threat from Iran's advancing nuclear program, launched a wide-ranging preemptive military campaign. This operation, codenamed Operation Rising Lion, represents a dramatic shift in Israeli policy. The goal, as stated by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, goes beyond just neutralizing nuclear facilities. He has openly called for regime change, urging the Iranian people to rise up against their leaders, a move that has sent shockwaves across the region and the globe, raising fears of a much wider war. The Israeli attack was a complex, multi-pronged operation combining sophisticated espionage with overwhelming air power. Before the main airstrikes, Mossad agents reportedly smuggled and assembled explosive drones inside Iran. These covert units carried out sabotage missions, disabling critical Iranian air defense systems and missile launchers from within. This initial phase was designed to pave the way for the Israeli Air Force, clearing a path for their jets to strike with greater effectiveness and reduced risk. This blending of clandestine sabotage and conventional military force highlights a new and dangerous phase in their decades-long animosity, demonstrating a high level of coordination and a willingness to take unprecedented risks to achieve strategic objectives. Following the initial sabotage, the Israeli Air Force launched a massive wave of airstrikes against targets across Iran. The operation reportedly struck over 100 different sites, focusing on Iran's nuclear infrastructure, military bases, and command and control centers. Key facilities, including the deeply buried Fordo nuclear site, were targeted, raising questions about what kind of munitions were used. The strikes also hit dozens of missile storage bunkers and Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps command posts. The scale of the assault was intended to cripple Iran's offensive capabilities and degrade its military leadership, a clear message of Israel's military reach and determination to prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear-armed state. The immediate aftermath of the strikes revealed significant damage to Iran's military infrastructure. Israel claimed to have destroyed over 120 missile launchers and successfully assassinated Ali Shadmani, the chief of the Iranian General Staff, in a targeted attack. By the fourth day of the operation, Israeli military sources asserted they had achieved air supremacy over Tehran, allowing their aircraft to operate with minimal resistance. This strategic advantage enabled continuous and precise attacks, systematically dismantling Iran's ability to retaliate effectively. However, this military success has come at a high cost, provoking a furious response from Tehran and drawing condemnation from international legal experts who argue the preemptive attack violates international law. Iran's retaliation was swift and forceful, demonstrating its resolve despite the damage to its military assets. Over 5 consecutive days, Iran launched a barrage of missiles and drones toward Israel. The attacks targeted both military sites and civilian population centers, including major cities like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. While Israel's advanced air defense systems, such as the Iron Dome, intercepted a significant number of the incoming projectiles, the sheer volume of the assault was intended to overwhelm Israeli defenses and instill fear in its populace. Tehran also claimed to have successfully struck sensitive Mossad installations, though these claims remain unverified by independent sources. The response was a clear signal that Iran would not absorb the Israeli attack without exacting a price. The human cost of this escalating conflict is being felt deeply by civilians on both sides. In Iran, the Israeli airstrikes have reportedly caused at least 224 deaths and over 1,000 injuries, with many of the casualties being civilians caught in the crossfire near targeted military sites. The strikes on the capital, Tehran, triggered a mass exodus with over 100,000 residents fleeing the city amid widespread panic. Evacuees have faced immense hardship, including severe fuel shortages and government-imposed internet restrictions that have added to the chaos and anxiety. The Iranian government has tried to downplay the situation, referring to the devastating strikes as isolated terrorist acts, but the fear among the population is palpable and growing daily. In Israel, the constant threat of Iranian missiles and drones has disrupted daily life and spread a blanket of fear across the country. While Israeli air defenses have been largely effective, some attacks have gotten through. The conflict has resulted in 24 Israeli deaths and numerous injuries, with sirens wailing day and night, forcing families to race to bomb shelters at a moment's notice. The psychological toll is immense, as the sense of security has been shattered. The targeting of major cities like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem ensures that no part of the country feels entirely safe, bringing the reality of the war home to every citizen and testing the resilience of the Israeli public in the face of a determined adversary. The military situation remains tense and dynamic, a deadly chess match played out in the skies over the Middle East. Israel currently holds air superiority over Iran, allowing it to continue its campaign to degrade Iranian military power. However, Iran's vast arsenal of missiles and its network of regional proxies still pose a significant threat. Both sides are facing challenges. Israel must sustain its complex air operations and maintain its defensive shield, while Iran must find ways to counter Israeli air dominance and inflict meaningful damage. This dangerous equilibrium has created a fragile stalemate where any miscalculation or bold move by either side could lead to a catastrophic all-out regional war. The escalating conflict has drawn immediate and intense reactions from the international community, with the United States playing a central and complex role. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration is pursuing a dual-track approach, balancing support for its key ally Israel, with attempts to de-escalate the crisis through diplomacy. While the Group of Seven has held Iran responsible for regional instability and affirmed Israel's right to self-defense, President Trump has also dispatched an envoy to engage in talks with Iran's foreign minister. The goal is to broker a ceasefire and potentially revive the 2015 nuclear deal under new, more stringent conditions, a move that shows a desire to avoid a full-blown war while still addressing the nuclear threat. However, the possibility of deeper U.S. military involvement looms large over the crisis. Discussions have been reported within the U.S. administration about providing Israel with powerful GBU-57 bunker-buster bombs, specifically designed to destroy deeply fortified underground facilities like Iran's Fordo nuclear plant. This move would signal a significant increase in U.S. support for the Israeli campaign and could be seen as direct participation in the conflict. Such a step is highly controversial, as it would risk not only massive radioactive contamination, but also a direct military confrontation between the United States and Iran, a scenario that many in Washington and around the world are desperate to avoid. Other global powers are urging restraint, fearing the conflict could spiral out of control. French President Emmanuel Macron has been a particularly vocal critic of any military action aimed at achieving regime change in Iran. He has warned that such a strategy could plunge the entire region into chaos, drawing parallels to the disastrous interventions in Iraq and Libya. Macron is advocating for a diplomatic solution that includes renewed international oversight of Iran's nuclear program and a reduction of its missile capabilities. This European stance highlights a significant rift between allies on how to best handle the crisis, with many favoring diplomacy and de-escalation over military confrontation. The conflict has also sent shockwaves through the global economy, primarily due to Iran's threats to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway is a critical choke point for global oil supplies, and any disruption could cause oil prices to skyrocket to over $150 per barrel, fueling worldwide inflation and potentially triggering an economic downturn. This threat puts immense pressure on all nations, as the economic consequences of a wider war would be felt far beyond the Middle East. The delicate balance of military posturing, diplomatic maneuvering, and economic threats has turned the Israel-Iran conflict into a global crisis, with far-reaching implications for international peace and security. As the conflict enters its second week, a sense of weary stalemate appears to be setting in, though the situation remains precariously balanced on a knife's edge. Israel has achieved many of its initial military objectives, establishing air supremacy and significantly degrading Iran's offensive capabilities. However, Iran has shown it can still inflict pain through missile and drone attacks, ensuring that the Israeli population cannot escape the consequences of the war. Both nations are showing signs of strain from the continuous military operations and the immense economic and social pressures. This mutual fatigue could potentially open a window for de-escalation, but the deep-seated animosity and strategic goals of each side make a return to the status quo unlikely. The path forward is fraught with peril and uncertainty, with several potential scenarios that could dramatically alter the course of the conflict. One major risk is that Iran, feeling cornered and unable to match Israel's conventional military power, might choose to accelerate its nuclear program in secret, believing a nuclear deterrent is its only ultimate guarantee of survival. Another danger is the activation of Iran's network of proxies across the region, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon, which could open up new fronts against Israel and transform the bilateral conflict into a multi-front regional war, drawing in neighboring countries and creating a far more complex and devastating battlefield. Despite the grim outlook, faint glimmers of hope for a peaceful resolution persist, primarily through international diplomatic efforts. The initiative led by the United States to broker a ceasefire alongside a new nuclear agreement represents the most viable, albeit challenging, path away from the brink. If successful, such a deal could address Israel's core security concerns about Iran's nuclear ambitions, while offering Iran a way out of crippling sanctions and military pressure. The success of these negotiations hinges on the willingness of both Israeli and Iranian leaders to step back from their maximalist demands and embrace compromise, a difficult prospect given the current high-stakes environment and heated rhetoric. Ultimately, the future of the Middle East hangs in the balance. The conflict could escalate further if one side miscalculates, or if hardliners gain the upper hand, potentially leading to a devastating war with global consequences. Conversely, diplomatic intervention, coupled with the sheer exhaustion of conflict, could pave the way for a fragile peace. The world holds its breath, watching to see whether the leaders of Israel and Iran will choose the path of continued confrontation or step back from the abyss. For the millions of civilians caught in the middle, the choice will mean the difference between life and death, and for the world, it will determine the stability of a vital and volatile region.